In the middle of Can't Help Myself, Elvis Presley suddenly stopped singing, dropped his microphone, and did something that made 2,000 screaming fans fall completely silent in under 3 seconds. Security rushed toward the stage, thinking something was wrong, but when they saw what Elvis was looking at in the crowd, they crystallized too. What could possibly make the king of rock and roll break character so completely that grown men in the audience started crying? The neon lights of the Las Vegas Strip pierced through the desert night like electric daggers, but inside the International Hotel's main showroom, the real energy comes from 2,000 beating hearts waiting in darkness. It's 1973, and America bleeds from a war that won't end. Families torn between pride and protest. Sons shipped overseas, while their mothers clutch telegrams with trembling fingers. The air conditioning hums against the Nevada heat, but nothing can cool the anticipation that crackles through the packed venue as electrical charges before tempests. The showroom itself tells the story of American excess crystal chandeliers hang as suspended starbursts above plush red velvet seats, each table adorned with white linens and champagne flutes that catch the ambient light as miniature reflective surfaces. Cigarette smoke creates ghostly halos around the stage lights, and the scent of expensive perfume mingles with the metallic taste of anticipation that permeates every palate in the room. This is the temple where dreams come to worship, where middle America pilgrimage to witness something larger than life, something that makes sense of a world gone mad, with conflict and confusion. But tonight, scattered throughout this sea of expectant faces, as archipelagos of dignity, young men in military dress uniforms sit with a quiet dignity that cuts through the hysteria. These are the soldiers on leave, some just returned from the jungles of Vietnam with eyes that have seen things no Hollywood movie could capture. Others preparing for deployment, with the empty courage of men walking toward their own mortality. They clutch their drinks with hands that know the weight of weapons, their pressed uniforms a stark contrast to the sequins and feathers surrounding them. The crowd buzzes with the particular energy that precedes greatness, conversations dying mid-sentence, as stagehands make final adjustments, photographers checking their equipment one last time, waitresses moving through the tables, with the practiced grace of performers threading through dangers of celebrity and expectation. Everyone knows they're about to observe something special, though none can predict just how special, how sacred, how utterly transformative the next hour will become. Suddenly, the lights explode in a cascade of gold and white, and there he is, Elvis Aaron Presley, draped in a white jumpsuit that catches every beam resembling starlight, made tangible. The crowd erupts in a primal scream that shakes the chandeliers, women extending toward the stage as if touching salvation itself, men shouting his name as if invoking the divine. But even as the familiar ritual of worship begins, something feels different tonight. The air itself seems charged with more than just anticipation. There's a weight, a gravity that pulls at something deeper than entertainment, an energy that metamorphoses mere performance into ceremony. Elvis grabs the microphone with the confidence of a man who has conquered the world, his voice rolling through the speakers resembling smooth lightning. "Well, hello there," he drawls, and the crowd loses what little composure remained. The band strikes the opening chords of "That's All Right," and for a moment, everything is exactly as it should be. The king commanding his kingdom, entertainment as escape, music as medicine for a wounded nation. Yet his eyes already begin their restless search through the crowd, seeking an element he cannot yet identify, but will soon recognize as the moment that changes everything. Behind the dazzling smile and gyrating hips, Elvis Presley bears the accumulated gravity of a decade that has aged him 20 years. The pills that once helped him sleep now keep him awake, creating a pharmaceutical purgatory where rest becomes a stranger and consciousness becomes a burden too heavy for any man to bear alone. The crowds that once energized him now drain essential energy from his center, each scream taking a piece of his soul that he can never recover, leaving him vacant at his core, where music once lived as pure joy rather than professional obligation. He remembers his own brief military service, with the clarity that comes only to things lost forever, the discipline and brotherhood that stripped away the celebrity and left just a young man from Memphis trying to serve his country with honor. Those 2 years in Germany had been the last time he felt normal, the last time Elvis the man existed without Elvis the king, casting shadows over every moment, every relationship, every attempt at genuine human connection. In the army, he was just another soldier, and the simplicity of that identity now seems as utopia when measured against the gilded cage of superstardom. The prescription bottles in his dressing room tell their own story, uppers to perform, downers to sleep, medications in between to maintain the delicate balance that keeps him functional, but never truly alive. His doctor speaks in medical terms about managing his condition, but Elvis knows the truth. He's managing his humanity, rationing his authentic self in doses small enough not to interfere with the product that bears his name. The mirror shows him a man approaching 40 who looks 50, whose eyes hold depths that no spotlight can illuminate, whose smile has become a muscle memory rather than an expression of genuine emotion. Now, as he croons into the microphone, his eyes keep finding the soldiers in the crowd, these boys barely old enough to vote who've been handed M16s and thrown into a war that makes less sense with each passing day. Their faces haunt him more than any ghost stoic masks, barely containing the storms beneath, some staring at him with the hollow eyes of men who've seen too much, others with the desperate hunger of souls seeking any escape from memories that follow them home as persistent shadows. Elvis recognizes that weight, that crushing responsibility of carrying other people's dreams and expectations, though his stage is made of lights and sequins, while theirs is constructed of mud and blood and the constant proximity of death. The music swells around him, but inside his chest, something tightens with each note, a vice of understanding that threatens to squeeze the performance right out of him. How can he sing about love and heartbreak when these boys have held dying friends in their arms, whispering final messages to mothers and sweethearts they'll never see again? How can he shake his hips and collect screams of adoration when mothers across America scream for different reasons? Sons who won't come home, futures buried in foreign soil, dreams interrupted by the machinery of war that consumes young men as a primordial force consuming offerings? Yet here they sit, seeking the same thing everyone else does, a few hours where the world makes sense, where music can heal what medicine cannot touch, where the king of rock and roll can somehow transform pain into purpose through the alchemy of performance. Elvis feels the familiar surge of performance adrenaline mixing with an urge deeper, more dangerous, the recognition that entertainment alone isn't enough tonight, that these uniformed young men need more than songs. They need acknowledgement, honor, the recognition that their sacrifice matters in a world that seems increasingly indifferent to their service and hostile to their very existence. The opening bars of "Can't Help Falling in Love" float through the showroom, resembling a mother's touch that has comforted millions across the world. And Elvis's voice wraps around the melody with the effortless grace that has made him immortal in the hearts of generations. 2,000 voices join him in whispered harmony, creating a cathedral of sound beneath the glittering chandeliers that converts the commercial space into nearing the divine. The song builds with the inevitable power of ocean waves, each note carrying the weight of countless first dances, wedding ceremonies, and moments when love felt like the answer to every question the universe might ask. But as he arrives at the second verse, his eyes lock onto something that stops his heart mid-beat and threatens to shatter the carefully constructed performance that has become his prison. A young soldier in dress blues, maybe 22 years old, sitting in flawless stillness, while chaos swirls around him, moisture gathering in his eyes like silent tributaries that catch the stage lights, resembling crystalline streams. The soldier's posture remains militarily precise, shoulders back and spine straight. But his face betrays the kind of vulnerability that only comes from witnessing horror and surviving when others didn't. From shouldering the burden of memories that no therapy can diminish and no time can heal. The soldier's hands rest motionless on his lap, but Elvis sees the tremor beneath the stillness, the barely controlled shake of a man fighting battles that extend far beyond any concert hall, battles that rage in the space between sleeping and waking, between memory and hope, between the boy he was and the warrior he's become. His uniform bears the ribbons of combat service. The bronze star, catching stage lights, has a tiny lighthouse of valor in the darkness. The Purple Heart, testament to wounds both visible and invisible. The combat infantryman badge, marking him as one who has walked through hell and somehow found his way back to this glittering palace of dreams and denial. Elvis's voice falters, the carefully rehearsed words dissolving on his tongue, as if made of morning mist, as a force more powerful than performance takes control of his body and soul. The microphone lowers slowly, his arm moving as if through thick water, and the band continues for 2 more measures before drummer Ronnie Tutt catches the seismic change in atmosphere and signals the others to fade. The music dies note by note until only the hum of amplifiers and the collective held breath of 2,000 souls fills the cavernous space, creating a silence so profound it seems to have weight and substance. Security guards shift nervously at the stage perimeter, hands moving instinctively toward their radios, as they try to assess whether this deviation from script represents danger or simply another of the King's famous improvisations. Colonel Parker straightens in his booth, cigar halted halfway to his lips, his calculating mind racing through possibilities and contingencies, while events unprecedented unfold on the stage below. The photographers lower their cameras, sensing that whatever is happening surpasses documentation, that some moments are too sacred to capture and commodify. An energy that can't be choreographed or rehearsed or controlled is taking place under the spotlight. The king of rock and roll, the man who commands armies of fans and bends nations to his will through the sheer force of his charisma, stands transfixed by a single soldier whose wounds are invisible, but whose pain radiates as thermal energy from molten steel, converting the very air around them into an atmosphere charged and alive with meaning. Without breaking eye contact, Elvis removes his signature sunglasses with the solemnity of a man removing his hat in church, revealing eyes that glisten with their own unshed tears and reflect the kind of recognition that passes between souls rather than strangers. The young soldier's response comes as a response from parallel worlds, his own hand snapping to his forehead, with the mechanical precision of military training that has been drilled into his muscles until it bypasses conscious thought, but his face crumbling with an emotion too vast and complex for any single name. Grief mixed with gratitude, honor tangled with humility, the overwhelming acknowledgement that someone sees him not as a uniform or a symbol, but as a human being who has sacrificed pieces of his soul in service to something larger than himself. In that suspended moment outside of time, 2 men separated by fame and circumstance, and the artificial boundaries that society erects between performer and audience, find themselves connected by a bond more fundamental than either music or military service. The witnessing of one human soul by another, the acknowledgement that beneath all uniforms, whether sequined or olive drab, beat spirits capable of shattering and mending in equal measure. Elvis holds the salute for what feels like eternity, but measures only heartbeats, each second stretching as if elastic and malleable, until it encompasses lifetimes of understanding. When he finally lowers his hand, the very molecules of air around them have shifted, as if the laws of physics themselves have paused to witness this collision of worlds. The silence that follows isn't merely the absence of sound, but a living, breathing entity that encompasses not just the showroom, but seems to reach spanning continents and oceans, extending to distant battlefields, where other young men crouch in foxholes and wonder if anyone back home remembers their names. or understands the price they've paid for the freedom to gather in places like this and worship false gods, while ignoring the real heroes sitting among them. "What's your name, son?" Elvis asks, his voice carrying without amplification in the absolute quiet that has descended as divine grace over the gathered crowd. The soldier struggles to compose himself enough to speak, his throat working against emotion that threatens to overwhelm the disciplined facade he's maintained since stepping off the transport plane 3 days ago. When he finally manages to form words, they crack as frozen glass under the pressure of everything they carry. "Private First Class Michael Rodriguez, sir. Just got back from Da Nang 3 days ago." The admission hangs in the air as sacred smoke, heavy and laden with meaning that transcends entertainment and enters the realm of testimony, of witness, of truth, spoken in a place dedicated to beautiful lies. Elvis nods, understanding passing between them in frequencies deeper than sound, older than language, primal as the recognition between pack animals who have survived the same hunt. "Welcome home, soldier. Welcome home." The words aren't just spoken, they're delivered as benediction, as forgiveness, such as the acknowledgement that America has failed to provide to these returning warriors who expected parades and found protests, who sought understanding and discovered indifference. Without the microphone, without the stage lights, without any of the apparatus of stardom that usually mediates his every interaction with the world, Elvis, in his humanity, speaks directly to Michael as soldier, and everyone else in the room becomes observer to approaching a sanctuary. The ripple effect begins slowly, in the manner of gathering thunder, first one person clapping, then another, then a section, until the entire showroom erupts, not in the familiar hysteria of fandom, but in the deeper, more profound thunder of recognition and respect. People rise to their feet not for the king but for the soldier, not for the entertainer, but for the young man in uniform who holds their freedom in his scarred hands and damaged heart. Grown men break down completely. Women clutch their hearts. And somewhere in the back, another veteran removes his cap in reverence for a moment that validates every sacrifice, every night terror, every wound that refuses to heal. This applause doesn't seek to possess or consume. It seeks to honor and heal, transforming a temple of celebrity worship into nearing the consecrated, where the sacred and profane dance together in perfect, impossible harmony.